My name is Alexei Romanov. I am 34 years old. I work as a system administrator in a small IT company in Yekaterinburg. I live alone in a 2-room apartment on the 9th floor, and until that night I considered myself an absolutely normal person. A skeptic. Someone who believes only in what can be touched with hands or verified through the command line. I didn't read horoscopes, wasn't superstitious, and didn't fear black cats. I believed in logic, in cause and effect relationships, in the idea that every phenomenon has a rational explanation. My father passed away 7 years ago. A stroke. He was 58, not an old man yet, strong, having worked as a foreman on construction sites his whole life. His name was Viktor Sergeyevich. His hands were like a sculptor's, large, rough, with construction dust embedded in the cracks of his palms that he couldn't wash off with any soap. I remember those hands better than his face in the last photographs. Strange, isn't it? Our relationship was complicated. Not bad. Just complicated, like it can be between men who love each other but don't know how to talk about it. He wanted me to go into construction. I chose computers. He thought I was doing some nonsense, and I thought he was living in the last century. We argued. We fell silent for weeks. Then he would call, saying, "So, are you alive?" I would reply, "Alive." And we both pretended that nothing had happened. When he was gone, I didn't get to say a lot. That's the scariest part. Not death itself, but that I didn't get to. He died on Thursday morning, alone, while I was at work. Mom found him in the chair in front of the TV that was on. In the kitchen stood an unfinished cup of tea. For 7 years I lived with that I didn't get to. I went to a psychologist for a year, then quit. I thought I had managed. I built a life for myself where there was no room for unnecessary thoughts. Work, gym, occasional meetings with friends, series in the evenings. The standard set of a lonely man in his early 30s. I didn't delete his number from my phone. I don't even know why. I just couldn't press that button. The number was saved in my contacts as Dad, and I sometimes accidentally brushed against it while scrolling. Each time, something inside would tighten for a split second, then release. I got used to that tightening. It became part of my ordinary day. That week was like all the others. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Deadline for the server migration, a nervous director. Coffee from the vending machine in the hallway. On Wednesday evening, I ordered pizza, watched 2 episodes of some detective show, and went to bed around midnight. Nothing special. No premonitions, no anxiety. An absolutely ordinary day. I fell asleep easily. That had always been my superpower. My head touched the pillow, and within 5 minutes I was already in another place. That night, I also fell asleep quickly. I slept without dreams, in complete darkness, in the silence occasionally broken by the hum of the elevator behind the wall. The phone rang at 3:47. I know the exact time because I looked at the clock afterward. I stared at those numbers for a long time, trying to convince myself that I was still asleep. But first, there was just a call in the dark. Sharp, unexpected. I jolted so hard that I almost fell out of bed. The phone lay on the nightstand, the screen lit up. In the absolute darkness of the bedroom, that light hit my eyes like a spotlight. I lay there staring at it for a few seconds, still not understanding what was happening. My head was heavy, thoughts were like cotton. Who was calling at almost 4 in the morning? I reached for the phone. I picked it up. I brought it to my face. The screen read, "Dad." I remember my first thought was completely idiotic. Someone hacked the phone. Or it's a bug. Or I'm still asleep. I shook my head. No, I'm not asleep. The screen wasn't flickering. The message wasn't disappearing. The call was ongoing. The 5th ring. The 6th. My hands, I remember this distinctly, started to tremble. Not much, barely noticeable, but I felt that slight tremor in my fingers as I held the phone. My heart was pounding somewhere in my throat. A part of me, the rational part, the one that believed in command lines and cause and effect relationships, was screaming, "This is a mistake. This is a stranger's number coinciding. This is a technical glitch. Pick up the phone and make sure." Another part didn't want to take it. At all. I took it. I brought the phone to my ear and said, "Hello." Or thought I did, because I wasn't sure if any sound actually came out. Silence. Not the kind of silence when a person is quiet and you hear background noise, someone's breathing, street sounds. A different silence. Absolute. As if there was nothing on the other end. No space, no air, no world. Just emptiness that has density. I wasn't breathing. I realized this after a few seconds. I was holding my breath, clenching it in my lungs because I was afraid that if I exhaled, something would change. Then, a click. Quiet. Mechanical. As if someone picked up the receiver of an old landline phone. Those are the kinds of sounds I heard in childhood when Dad called home from work. I would recognize that sound among 1,000. And a voice. I won't describe it at length. I'll just say this. It was his voice. Not similar, not reminiscent. His. A bit hoarse, low, with that characteristic Ural intonation, where the last word in a sentence seems to go down. The voice of a person who is used to speaking briefly and to the point. He said one phrase. "Lyosha, don't go over the bridge on Malisheva tomorrow, it will be bad." That's it. Nothing more. No hello, no it's me, no explanations. One phrase, and the line was cut off. No beeping, just silence became the usual silence of the apartment again. I sat on the bed. I don't know how long. A minute, 10 minutes. The phone in my hand. In my head. Absolute white noise. Then I started to shake for real. A big, ugly tremor that I couldn't stop. I got up, walked to the kitchen, turned on the light, bright, with a fluorescent lamp that I had long intended to replace. I put the kettle on, sat down at the table. Malisheva over the bridge? Malisheva Street is one of my usual routes to work. There are two ways. Through the center on Malisheva, where there is a small bridge over the railway, or a detour through Lenin. It's about 7 minutes faster on Malisheva. I take this route almost every day. I opened my phone and checked the call history. Incoming 3:47. Dad. The call lasted 40 seconds. 40 seconds of conversation with a person who has been gone for 7 years. I didn't sleep until morning. I sat in the kitchen, drank tea, and looked out the window at the dark yard. I thought. I tried to find a rational explanation and found none. Could someone have hacked the account? But the voice. The voice is impossible to fake in a way that I wouldn't feel the difference. I have heard that voice for 30 years of my life. An audio deepfake live at 4 in the morning? Why? Who needs that? Around 8 in the morning, I called the operator. I explained the situation, dryly, without emotions, just the facts. There was an incoming call from a number registered to a deceased subscriber. I asked them to check. The girl on the line was silent for a moment, then asked me to hold. I waited 8 minutes. I counted. Then she returned and said in a bureaucratic voice that the number is not listed in the registry of active subscribers. That the number was disconnected 6.5 years ago due to the owner's death and has not been reissued since. I asked her to check the incoming call in my history once again. She said she sees a record of an incoming call but can't identify the source. A technical glitch which sometimes happens with routing errors. Technical glitch. I thanked her and hung up. At 9 in the morning, I called my friend Igor. We've known each other for about 15 years. He's the only person I could tell something like this to without the fear of being immediately ridiculed. Igor is a doctor, an anesthesiologist, just as much of a skeptic as I am. He listened in silence. Then he said, "Lyosh, when was the last time you slept well? Are you sure you didn't dream?" I said no. I didn't dream. I was woken up by the call. I have a record in the history. Duration 40 seconds. He was silent for a little longer. Listen, grief does strange things to the brain. Sometimes years later. Maybe it's worth talking to someone. Just like that. Technical glitch. Grief does strange things. I didn't tell anyone else. I called my mom, just to hear her voice without explaining anything. She asked if everything was okay. I said yes, just missed her. She talked about the neighbor and the broken elevator in the entrance. I listened and thought about the bridge. I spent the whole day in some kind of glassy state. I sat at the computer, pretended to work, but looked through the screen. Colleagues asked a few times if everything was okay. I apparently looked unwell. I replied that I hadn't slept well. Everything was fine. By evening, I almost convinced myself that it was a dream, or a glitch, or fatigue. Tomorrow I would go through Malishiva, as usual, and nothing would happen, and all of this would be forgotten in a week. Almost convinced. At 11 in the evening, I went to bed. I couldn't fall asleep for a long time. I lay in the dark and looked at the nightstand where the phone was. It didn't ring. I fell asleep only after 2. In the morning, I got up at 7. I took a shower, made coffee, got dressed, took the car keys, and I drove through Lenin. I can't explain why I made this decision. Not because I believed. I still didn't believe. Just, at the fork at the traffic light, something inside said, no. Not a voice, not a thought, just a feeling, like a hand placed on the steering wheel and turning it in the other direction. It takes about 10 minutes longer to get through Lenin. I parked near the office at 8:42. I went up, poured coffee from the machine. I turned on the computer. At 9:07, a message came into our common work chat from Dennis, who lives in the same area. Guys, who is going through Malishiva? Everything is blocked, a serious accident on the bridge, take a detour. I sat and looked at these words. Then I opened a news website. The news appeared 20 minutes after Dennis's message. The accident occurred at 8:31 a.m. A truck lost control on the bridge over the railway on Malishiva Street. Collision with 3 passenger cars. 2 people hospitalized. The bridge is closed. 8:31. I usually pass this bridge around 8:20, 8:30. I read the news to the end. I looked out the window. Outside was a typical November morning. Gray, cold, with a fine drizzle on the glass. It will be bad there. I didn't panic. It's strange, perhaps, but I didn't panic. Inside there was something else. Something cold and very quiet. As if the ground beneath my feet had shifted slightly. Not collapsed, not trembled. Just shifted by a millimeter. And you realized it wasn't as solid as you had thought it was your whole life. All day I walked with this feeling. I worked, answered emails, drank coffee. And all the time somewhere at the edge of my consciousness, his voice, the intonation, that Ural intonation when the last word goes down. After work, I got in the car and didn't drive home. I went to the cemetery. I hadn't been there for about 2 years. It's shameful, but it's true. I found his place in the dim light. November gets dark early. I could still see the letters on the stone, but barely. I stood there. I didn't know what to do, what to say. Then I said out loud, quietly, to myself, feeling like a complete idiot. Dad, was that you? Of course, there was no answer. The wind. Somewhere off to the side, a crow. An ordinary cemetery in the November twilight. I stood there for about 15 minutes and then left. At home, I opened the call history once again. The record was still there. 3:47. Dad, 40 seconds. I took a screenshot. I don't know why, just in case. Then I went to contacts and stared at his name for a long time. I didn't delete the number. 3 months have passed since that night. I didn't call the psychologist, although Igor hinted at it several times. I haven't told this story to anyone, except for you now. Life has become different. Not bad, not good, just different. I've started noticing things I didn't notice before. Sometimes I wake up at night and look at my phone. Not because I'm waiting for a call, just looking. Sometimes before going to sleep I think, what did he want to say? Was it just this? Or was there something else he didn't have time for? Or did he have time, but at some later point? I still haven't found a rational explanation. A technical glitch with the voice of my deceased father, who warned of a specific accident in a specific place at a specific time in 40 seconds. This doesn't fit into any scheme I know how to construct. I thought about coincidence. I thought long and hard. A coincidence is when you take a different road because you left later, or because you remembered something, or just like that, and then you find out that something happened on your usual route. It happens. But I have a record in my call history. I have 40 seconds. I have his voice in my ear at 3:47 a.m. I can't call it a coincidence. So what is it then? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And it seems that this ignorance will stay with me forever. I've learned to live with it. It's such a part of me now, like a scar that doesn't hurt, but you always know it's there. The only thing I know for sure, I no longer put my phone on silent mode at night. Last week at 3 in the morning, it vibrated on the nightstand. I woke up instantly. My heart was already racing even before I picked up the phone. I sat up, looked at the screen. Spam from the bank. I lay in the dark for another hour, unable to fall asleep, thinking that this will be the case every time now. Every night call is a split second when you don't know who's on the other end. Every night, that little cold moment between the phone rang and I looked at the screen. He took my peaceful sleep away, or returned something I lost 7 years ago. I still don't understand what exactly. A few weeks ago, Mom called, just to talk as usual. At the end of the conversation, she suddenly said, "You know, I dreamed about Dad yesterday. He was saying something, but I couldn't hear. Only the intonation was as if he was warning about something." She paused. Strange, isn't it? So many years have passed. I said, "Yes, strange." I didn't say anything more. I don't know if he will call again. I don't know if I want him to. Sometimes I think, if he calls, what will I say? What have I wanted to say for so long? Or will I just be silent and listen, knowing that 40 seconds is all there is? His number is still in my contacts. Dad? I never deleted it. I probably won't delete it now.